Hi, hello, and welcome to my June roundup and empties. We should be having a pretty easy breezy time because I don't have that much makeup to share and I have 0 empties this month. So I think for a change we don't have to be here for almost a full hour. I have a few new products to share with you, only one that has already been in my collection for quite a bit of time. So I think I'm going to actually start with that. I'm going to start with some base makeup. And the first product I wanted to share with you is the MAC Studio Water Weight Foundation. I have mine in the shade NC25. And if you've been around my channel for a significant amount of time, you may remember that the reason I purchased this foundation is that a number of years ago Estee Lauder used to offer a version of their Double Wear foundation, which I think was called Nude, the Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude, but don't quote me on it because it's been quite a few years. It was your classic, more liquid, sheer, sort of like dewy finish type foundation. It was a wonderful foundation, and I'm a huge fan of the Double Wear range. Pretty much everything that I've ever tried from the Double Wear range, maybe with only one small exception, when they had this like spongy type applicator product that Samantha Ravendal used to recommend, and that was even longer ago than the Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude. But the thing with the Double Wear range is that you've got your classics, the Estee Lauder Original Double Wear Foundation, which I've been a fan of for more than a decade now, and they haven't touched that range. That foundation is a staple. But unfortunately, every other version of Double Wear gets discontinued sooner or later. I remember a while ago they had a Double Wear Light which came in like a squeezy tube, which was my absolute favorite foundation. I think I liked it even more than the original Double Wear because it had pretty much the same qualities as the Double Wear but with slightly less coverage, so it was a bit easier to manipulate and a bit easier not to overdo. I loved that foundation. I was really sad when they discontinued it. And then they brought out that Double Wear Nude, which was not quite like the light version because it was a bit sheerer, a bit more dewy in finish, but like that beautiful dewy natural type finish. And of course, what did Estee Lauder do? They discontinued that foundation, which of course upset me greatly. So I was pretty upset and I was trying to find alternatives to that foundation while I still had it so that I can compare. And very randomly, I came across a Reddit post where the person had mentioned that essentially the Studio Water Weight from MAC and the Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude are the same foundation, not just in terms of how they perform, but also if you compare the ingredients. And it made a lot of sense because MAC is owned by Estee Lauder, so it wasn't a huge stretch to believe that the two foundations might essentially be the same product packaged differently and sold under different brands. But anyway, so I purchased this foundation. I even made a video where I compared the two. They were indistinguishable from each other in terms of their finish, in terms of how they perform, in terms of pretty much everything that I could think of. Those two were indistinguishable. Wow, what a winded, long, roundabout way for me to tell you how much I enjoy this foundation. But I think an important lesson to be learned here is that you should never rely on Estee Lauder foundations that are not the original Double Wear to not be discontinued. Never get attached to them because they will be discontinued. Anywho, I've been loving this foundation. I've had it for years, but something that I also mentioned in one of my previous videos is that I tend to enjoy this foundation more in the summer, which is a bit counterintuitive because it's a sheer, very dewy type foundation, and you would think that this foundation would work better in the winter, but for whatever reason, when my skin is drier in the winter, this foundation just settles very weirdly into my pores and it just doesn't have any of the benefits that I usually see in the summer. I have to tell you, I think my skin really thrives in the summer because I feel like it's always plumper, juicier, healthier, and dewy, but not in a greasy way. I feel like even when it's really hot and sweaty outside and very humid, I will use a foundation like this, which should theoretically not hold up very well and it should start sliding around within a few hours, but that doesn't really actually happen. The foundation looks beautiful on the skin. It's very natural. It's definitely a sheer coverage, so do not rely on it to cover any sort of imperfections on your skin, but it just looks so beautiful and so natural, and I really love it. I have just a little bit left from it, and I have been working towards finishing it because it is getting quite up in the years, but I think if I were ever on the hunt for a new foundation in this type of formula, I think I might just go back to this one because it is a reliable foundation. It is not the foundation that I'm currently wearing. The foundation that I'm currently wearing is a new one that I wanted to talk a little bit more about. So last month I purchased for the first time ever products from the Danessa Myricks beauty range, and the two products that I purchased are both in her special, what is this called again? The Blurring Balm Finish formula. So first of all, we have the Blurring Balm foundation, and mine is in the shade I already forgot. Oh yeah, I have the shade 3, and I was quite intrigued by this product because Alicia Archer was very positive about it, especially in terms of the technology that it contains, which is very well suited to wear during the summer when it's very hot and humid. I was a little bit skeptical because I've never really had a lot of luck wearing these types of products. I've always found them to just not agree with my skin type. So this foundation contains the so-called Opsalite technology, which was originally developed in the Uppsala University in Sweden. And it is some sort of technology which helps to absorb excessive oil and sebum from your skin. So when you apply this foundation over the course of the day, this Opsalite component will help to absorb the extra, you know, dew and grease and sebum that your skin would create, preserving a very, you know, flawless finish on your skin. And that is basically exactly what happens when you use this product. I've now tried this in a variety of different ways. I've used it on its own, I've set it with a powder, I've worn it in weather that is extremely hot and humid throughout long, you know, either working days or days where I've been out and about for over 12 hours, and I can honestly tell you this performs really well. Now the question is, does it perform better than my trusty Estee Lauder Double Wear foundation? I'll be completely honest with you, it doesn't. I think in terms of their performance, the two foundations are very much on par. What this foundation does that I find quite striking is that it works very well also as a concealer. So I can apply it underneath my eyes. It's actually what I have today also underneath my eyes. I don't have any concealer on, I just have the blurring balm, and I've already talked about it. Unfortunately, I don't have my sponge here because I put it in the bathroom to wash in a little bit, but I learned this trick from one of you, Lisa, one of my subscribers, who mentioned that you use this product with a dry beauty sponge, and that is really the best way to apply this, because I feel like with a product like this, you're very much in danger of over-applying very quickly. And if you over-apply it, then I can guarantee you that it's going to start looking a little bit cakey, it's going to start looking foundation-y, and it's going to start settling into your fine lines. I have a smile line here, which is always a telltale sign when I have overused this foundation, because then I can see it gathering in here. I don't usually find the need to set this product, but let's say that I know it's going to be over 30 degrees, it's going to be very humid, and I want to make extra sure that my foundation isn't going to slip and slide around. I wanted to make a recommendation for a powder that I think works really well with this product, and that is the Prada Reset Rebalancing Setting Powder. So I just dip my sponge a little bit into this product after I've applied the Danessa Myricks Blurring Balm, and then I push this powder into my skin. And because this powder has such a beautiful natural finish to it, it doesn't add any extra texture, powderiness or dryness to the skin. It just beautifully sets the product. The two textures just work really well together. I highly recommend trying the two of them if you have them and you were searching for a powder that you could set this product with. Now, as I mentioned, because this doesn't really perform all that much better compared to my Double Wear foundation from Estee Lauder, you're probably wondering then what is the added benefit of having this? First of all, sheer curiosity. My curiosity has been satisfied and I have finally tried the Danessa Myricks brand, which I have been looking forward to for years. But I think the second added benefit of this product will really shine through when I start traveling for work, because sometimes when I travel for work, I only go away for like 2 to 3 days. I take hand luggage with me, and you know, when you go on a plane, they make a huge deal out of taking liquid products with you. And then I can just scrape a little bit of this, put it in a little container and take it with me and use it both as a foundation and as a liquid and as a concealer, excuse me, and I don't have to worry about taking a liquid product in my hand luggage anymore. The second product that I purchased that is also in the Yummy Skin, sorry, it's the Yummy Skin, not the Blurring Balm, but the Yummy Skin line, is, and it uses the same Opsalite technology, is one of her cream blushes. This is in the shade Spiced Latte, which is very much a Mariam shade. It's the blush that I have today on my skin. It is a beautiful rosy terracotta. It is just so incredibly gorgeous. I love the undertone of this. Is the undertone of this something that I don't have? No, if I look across my collection, I have very many similar shades. I have the Suku 08 blush in the melting powder formula, which is a similar shade. I have the new YSL blush in the shade Nocturnal Nude, which is a somewhat similar shade. They have slight differences in their undertone, but I believe once you put them on the skin, you're not going to notice that much of the differences in the undertone. But with that said, I love this product. It behaves essentially like the blurring balm. It's very long lasting. It sits beautifully on the skin. Again, you have to be careful with over applying because it is very pigmented, and if you go in straight from the pan into with a brush onto your face, I think you're going to apply too much. So what I usually do is I just apply a little bit of this, like I just apply a little bit of the product like this on the back of my hand, and then I use a very dense, either synthetic or natural bristle brush, and I just stipple it onto my skin. Looks flawless, beautiful, gorgeous color, very much a Mariam color. Now, we already talked about these two palettes last month, but I told you in the end of last month that I had used them so little that I was a little bit reluctant to give you a full rounded review and thoughts, and that's what I would like to provide you today. I want to start off by saying that without the shadow of a doubt, these are beautiful palettes, and I have absolutely no regrets having added them to my collection. Let's start off with the palette that I'm currently wearing, which is Praline. These two eyeshadow palettes were actually released in the end of last year as a limited edition run, and they brought them back about 2 months ago. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't actually know whether they brought them back to bring them into their permanent line, or they're once again brought back in a limited edition capacity. So watch out for that. I'm not sure whether these are going to be around for a while. Let's talk about the Praline Et and You palette, which is what I call the perfect mocha mousse color story. You will see that when you look at this palette, you're mostly dealing with lighter to mid-tone shadows, and there is not that much depth to the color. So this is going to be a very easy to wear, very, let's say, office friendly type of eyeshadow palette. And what I think sets this eyeshadow palette apart from a lot of other similar color stories, and the same can be said of its sister, the Lumiere, what is it called? The Lilas Lumiere Et and You palette, is the undertones. There is something very special about the combination of the undertones in this eyeshadow palette, and just how beautifully subtle and well thought out they are. They're not too warm, they're not too orange, they're also not too cool. So there is a good variety of like more like neutral leaning shades, such as this one, and somewhat like warmer leaning browns, but warmer leaning browns which do not have an overwhelming amount of orange in them. At least on me, they do not translate to orange. You can see these two eyeshadows, while they look rather warm in the pan and they would be in the danger of looking rather orange, on the list they actually really translate as like this mocha moussey undertone. The shimmers in here are a really good variety, really beautiful undertones. I really love this one here, which is like a rosy brown. Then I have this one on my lids today, which is more like a very like bright peachy champagne, and it very much reminds me of my beloved Golden Polaris from Pat McGrath. I think they are very much related in terms of their undertone. It's just that the shade from Pat is so much more impactful and glittery, and of course my personal favorite. But I absolutely adore the undertone of this shade. There is something very brightening about these kind of eyeshadows on my lids. I don't know what it is. Absolutely beautiful. I love this shade. I haven't actually used this deeper bronzy goldy shade. The one thing I will say about both palettes is that I'm not too thrilled about the presence of the gold shades. So because of that, I've been in a slightly rebellious mood and I've refused to use them. I should probably give them a go, because they're probably going to be, once again, surprisingly interesting undertones. Then you have this shade here, which is a bit leaning almost on the cooler side of things. So there is such a good variety of undertones and finishes, and just interesting, unique, flattering, elegant undertones. And now let's talk about my personal favorite. Without a doubt, has to be the Lilas Lumiere Et and You, for several reasons. Once again, those unique, beautiful, hard to dupe undertones, the combination of the colors, and every time I do a look with it, I'm completely enamored with what's going on my eyelids. I love the combinations of textures, because this eyeshadow palette actually offers a few eyeshadows that have a bit more of an impactful, like metallic, like they deliver a lot of metallic punch. They're not glittery, but they deliver quite a bit of a metallic punch, unlike the Praline Et and You, where you have maybe one eyeshadow which is a little bit more impactful in terms of its texture. In here you have at least 3 eyeshadows, so all of these 3 eyeshadows here are pretty impactful, and again, they're just so beautiful. I love these like taupey, cooler tone sort of browns because while they're cool toned, they're not too gray and unflattering on someone who has neutral to perhaps slightly warmer undertones, such as myself, and I'm rather convinced that they are not going to translate orange or red or pink on someone who has a cooler undertone. I think they would still translate as beautiful neutral taupes. And then just, you know, the variety of the metallic eyeshadows, the variety of the different looks that you can achieve. I'm in love with this palette. My only complaint here would be again the gold shade, but I should probably refrain from reviewing this shade if I haven't actually used it yet. So I will get back at you about this shade. It might be that to my surprise it turns out to be a beautiful shade that I can't put down. But currently I'm obsessed with this shade and this shade.
Ik voel me wat beter.
Voel je wat beter?
Ja.
Zoet hè? Waarom ben je spiernaakt zoet hè?
Ik wil iets vragen, mag ik deze aan?
Yeah. Okay, so that was my son butt naked after his shower. I don't think you could see any inappropriate bits, but you know, I'll try to edit those out. What I was talking about my favorite eyeshadows from this palette. I've got a few. Basically all of them. I love every single eyeshadow in here. I don't know what I'm doing swatching them. Let me show them to you because they're already on my fingers as it is, but I just adore all of them. They're gorgeous. And I've enjoyed using this palette so very much. So I can wholeheartedly recommend this eyeshadow palette if you are at all into these kind of shades. Every single look I've created with this eyeshadow palette has been an absolute hit, and perhaps a review in itself can just be the statement that I always look forward to using it. I'm always so excited when I'm going to be doing a look with the Lilas Lumiere. And finally, let's talk about the product quad in the shade Poetry, which is the newest addition to my Prada eyeshadow palette collection. Before we talk about the actual eyeshadow quad though, I wanted to talk about something else. So this is the first time that I'm only buying one of the refills instead of the full component. And I've got to tell you, I've got a bit of a regret about not purchasing the whole component. The reason being that the inserts come packaged rather flimsily. So this is the outside packaging in which the little inserts come, and because of course I have my Poetry quad now in one of the components, I have a different quad that is housed in here. So I wanted to show you how they come packaged. So they come packaged in this little sleeve. So you just, you know, open the sleeve and inside is your little insert. And there's literally zero other protection here. You just get the little insert, you have the little cardboard sleeve, and that's it. There's no plastic or anything that you can cover the insert with, so I find that a little bit surprising, mostly because even if I were to be very gentle and to store my little cardboard insert in the box in a very safe place, I'm afraid that simply the fact that there's nothing to cover the insert with will result in these eyeshadows aging quicker. So I am slightly worried about that. I'm genuinely worried that these are going to dry out because they are continuously exposed to air. So that is a huge con to purchasing these quads only to the capacity of an insert. You have to deal with digging them out from the sleeve, from the cardboard packaging every single time you want to exchange them, which is not trivial. And second of all, you run the risk of them aging quicker. I wanted to specifically mention that because I know a lot of us find the whole concept of the interchangeability of these quite appealing, because we want to, you know, be environmentally friendly. We are excited about this whole concept of being able to exchange the inserts and only have one or a few of these components, you know. But now let's quickly talk about this quad. This is a beautiful color story, but the star of this show really is this beautiful metallic pink here, which I would call one of those beautiful, sophisticated, grown-up pinks. It's pink, but it's just such an elegant pink. It has a beautiful texture to it, a beautiful undertone, and let me tell you, my favorite look to do with this palette has actually been combining it with my Pansy quad. So if you remember from my Roundup and Empties last month, I mentioned that I had purchased one of the Hollow Nudes quads. So these are their newest release, the like more neutral color stories with a bit of a duochrome shifty shade in them. I have only one of them. I have the shade 08 Pansy, and I have been loving pairing the pink metallic shade Well, actually not just the pink metallic shade. I've been loving pairing Poetry together with Pansy. So what I will do is I will take either this pink shade here or a combination of these two pink shades to apply through my crease and outer corner. Then I will go into the Poetry quad and apply the beautiful metallic pink shade all over my lids. Then I will go back into the Pansy quad. This is complicated, I know. And I will go into the duochrome shade, which has a bit of a green shift to it, in order to apply that in my inner corners, sometimes even as a bit of a topper over the pink shade from Poetry. If I'm feeling extra spicy, I will apply a little bit of one of my Wycon Visionary eyeshadows just for, you know, a bit of extra glimmer. And then finally, I will go back into Poetry and do my favorite new thing, which is apply a smoky dark liner just using a dry eyeshadow, and in this case I will take this deeper brown over here from the Poetry quad. I've enjoyed this eyeshadow look so much that I've actually worn it already a couple of times, which says something. And finally, let us quickly discuss a couple of lip products. And once again, I wanted to start off by mentioning the Prada lip balm in the shade Maple. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful balm formula. The color is just absolutely stunning. It is a gorgeous, like, brown with slightly brick tones to it, which translates just so flattering on my complexion. I absolutely love it. The actual balm texture is very pleasant, very nourishing. Love this, absolutely love this, and I wanted to reiterate once again this month how much I've loved it, because I've continuously used it throughout the month of June. But now let's talk about the lip product from Prada that came out of nowhere and just took me by surprise, and that is another one of their soft matte lipsticks. I purchased finally the shade Caramel, and this is a shade that I've been eyeing ever since the release of these lipsticks, and it was one that I constantly had in my cart, and I removed it because I just wasn't quite sure what to expect from it. Because when someone tells me that an eyeshadow or a color of lipstick is called Caramel, I expect it to have the shade of caramel, and it's not this. When I show you this color, do you really think of caramel? Because that is not what I associate caramel with. To me, caramel is a warmer, yellow-based kind of brown, whereas this is nothing, it has nothing to do with the actual shade of caramel. So I think that is very confusing about this lipstick. But the actual color of this is just stunning. It is, in fact, now that I think of it, quite similar to the lip balm in the shade Maple, which is probably the reason I love it so much, but it comes in my beloved soft matte formula. I've already sung praises to this formula in so many videos before. I think it is one of my favorite lipstick formulas of all time. But this specific color is just the perfect brown for me. On my lips and against my complexion, this is essentially the perfect brown nude. It's not too light, it's not too dark, it's not too cool, it's not too warm. It is just simply perfection. It wears so beautifully. I've enjoyed this lipstick so much that I think in the past month I've worn it probably a good 10 times. Which is a lot considering I've only had this lipstick for a little over 30 days and I have a very large, well, an extensive lipstick collection, and one that includes a lot of browns. Now, speaking of browns, let's talk about the two new Rouge Experience lipsticks that I bought from Lisa Eldridge. So she released her summer collection featuring an eyeshadow palette and 3 new shades of the Rouge Experience line, and I purchased the 2 browns. I purchased the shades Ray and Toasted. So let's start with the color Ray. Something that I wanted to point out. So I've noticed that my little refills, for some of them the cap stays on really tightly and really well, and for others it's actually rather flimsy. So I don't know that I would comfortably put this in a bag and take it with me, because I think the cap might come off quite easily, which also worries me a little bit in terms of the same reasons that I mentioned for the Prada refills, that if this is not closing tightly, air is coming in and it is aging the product a little bit faster. Do you guys have a similar experience? What's going on? Because my first 2 Rouge Experience lipsticks, the caps fit very tightly onto the refill, and I've never had to worry about them aging faster. But anyway, talking about the 2 new brown lipsticks, they're beautiful. I will refer you to the video where I do extensive lip swatching and I talk about this formula and about these shades. Now, what I will mention is that I've only ever worn the shade Ray that one time when I wore it for the original video, and I think that will probably remain the case for the good part of the next few months, because to me this is more of a fall winter type shade. To me this is essentially a shade of lipstick that is very similar to Decade from her Velvet line, which was recently discontinued, which is one of my favorite browns of all time, but I really only wear it in the fall and winter. It's just not a shade that I even think of to wear in the summer months. And something that strikes me about both Ray and Toasted is how cool in tone they appear on me. So while Decade balances very well between being neutral to slightly cool, this certainly leans quite a bit more onto the cooler side of the spectrum for me. So essentially, if you add these two factors together, a deep brown which leans rather cool, I just don't see how I'm going to wear this lipstick in the next few months, because where I live now, it is full-on summer. But with that said, I love this color, I love this formula, and I think I'm really going to enjoy it once the appropriate time of the year is here. And perhaps to a similar extent, the same can be said of the shade Toasted. Now, I nicked my Toasted with my grubby little nails because I store my little refills in the original boxes, and then I don't know what I had done. I hadn't really placed the refill in such a way that I could easily take it out, and then because the cap came off very easily, my finger went right into the lipstick, and for a second there my heart dropped into my feet. But okay, now I'll just have to deal with the fact that my Toasted looks a little bit ugly because I nicked it. But anyway, the color is gorgeous. Again, it is a light nude brown beige, which again leans a little bit more onto the cooler side of things. Again, a shade that I would probably preferably wear more in the winter months with cooler toned eye looks. This is probably a shade that I would wear a little bit more throughout the year, because I do wear colors like this a little bit less dependent on the season, but still I think it would be a shade that I would enjoy a bit more in the winter months than in the summer. I think for now they're probably going to just be laying around in my collection, which is a bit unfortunate because she released all of these new shades like Bohemian Cherry and Toasted and Ray, and I consider all of them to be fall to winter shades, so now for a couple of months they're just going to have to chill in my drawers until the time comes that I'm going to enjoy them. And you know, since we are now in the circle of trust, I wanted to talk to you about something. So remember how I told you that I had figured out, well, I didn't figure it out, I think someone on Instagram tipped me off about it a while ago, that you can stack your codes, your 5% off codes on the Lisa Eldridge website. Now apparently on the website itself it says that you can't do that, which leads me to believe that there might be some sort of a glitch going on, which is why you can stack these codes up to 5 and you can get up to 25% off your purchase. And because I shared this information rather freely and I considered it basically a well-established fact that most people were probably aware of, and I was just preaching to the choir, and I was once again the last person on earth to figure this out, as it turned out 90% of you, if not 100, from everyone who commented on my video and on my post, was not aware of this. So you guys, I think we should keep this on the hush-hush. I think we should not be like too loud about it, because next thing you know, they're going to fix the glitch and we can't use our points anymore. Which made me think a little bit about the whole point system on the Lisa Eldridge website, because I honestly think that they should offer the possibility to stack these codes, because what else am I going to do with 3,000 points? How am I ever going to use up my 3,000 freaking points if I can only use 5% at a time? So on the one hand, I'm a little bit worried that we're going to rattle the cage and they're going to fix the glitch and we can't use our points anymore. On the other hand, I think it just seems perfectly logical to me that you would be able to stack these codes within a reasonable amount, of course, because we've just all accumulated thousands and thousands upon thousands of points, and there's literally no other way to use them up. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about that. So I'm going to finish off the video on this note. Thank you so much for watching. Please do share your experiences with the products that I mentioned, because I know a lot of you already have them, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. As usual, thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!